Welcome back to All Things Apostolic. We've recently been talking about Gen Z, some of the research, and also interviewing pastor and youth pastor Boston Young. So we're going to be continuing that interview today. So then it sounds like the health issues like mental health issues such as anxiety and depression you're not seeing, but are you saying that the issues with pornography or being able to see visual violence, or I guess that's redundant, but seeing violence at unheard of levels that we weren't exposed to, those are impacting? You are seeing that in the youth group. We know that violence is accessible to view, but are you seeing increased levels of pornography? That's the problem of social media. I would say,
and if you're watching this and you have kids, I guarantee they've been exposed to pornography. So 90-something% of young men under the age of 21 in church, period. This is Focus on the Family, or someone did this study. It's in the 90s for boys. So if you think your son has never been exposed, he has.
But that percentage is just, I saw it, but I'm not.
They've been exposed.
I'm not repeatedly looking at it.
But the addiction numbers are off the charts.
In church and out of church.
In church and out of church. And for women, it's in the 70s.
Now that is the part I struggle with. I don't understand. So we've been raised, of course, I was born in the 60s, but my generation knew that, or we were taught boys are visual. So if boys are going to have a problem with pornography, it's because they are stimulated by visual things, but girls are stimulated by touch. So why would pornography through an electronic device be appealing to girls? That part I don't.
That part I'm not going to get into, honestly, because I'm not an expert and I don't really want to speak on something that I can't. But I would say
But it is an issue with both, boys and girls.
Issue with both. And what I would say is there's something that I'd rather someone else speak to why. But there is something different for Gen Z and millennial. This is not just a Gen Z phenomenon. That when I was younger, sexting was a big thing.
Oh, yes.
And there was people who would never think about going and doing actions, but they were addicted. So
and sexting would be, it's either words or with pictures, of themselves, images of themselves that they're texting
back and forth. Okay, and so I'll let an expert,
on the why.
Sister Beth Baus or Adam and Krista or someone like that speak to the why. I don't want to get into that because I am not qualified.
Okay.
But what I would say is there is something about the technology and something about the way all of that psychologically, probably spiritually, the eyes are the gateway to the mind. Okay. So there's something there for girls and boys. It's not just boys. It's the girls is actually, nobody talks about it, but it's off the charts as well. So there's something there spiritually, psychologically, sexually that is going on. Okay.
Now, are parents not supervising young people enough? Or just once they got exposed, they just have private access to their phones whenever they want?
Okay, so
what's enabling it?
Okay, so this is the problem, is you and I are 100% incapable of monitoring correctly.
Yeah.
There's no way you can monitor at a level of just completely, there's no access. Because access is, and I know you do a great job.
No, I have certain guidelines, but I would be one of the first ones to say I'm blessed that Well, anyway, my daughter thankfully has standards of her own that I've taught her, and she's adopted. But I've not been one of those parents that has been really vigilant on this stuff. So, I mean, I worry about her, but I'd even, this might be wrong to say, but have been more worried about if I had a son, because I didn't do a good job about. Remember how on the internet they used to have, you could buy these programs that
Covenant eyes and stuff like that,
certain things couldn't come up. I don't even know how to do that kind of thing on phones.
So this is one of the problems, is the young people, like my youth group is a lot smarter with technology than I am. And they can figure out a loophole for anything I try and fix. And so it doesn't work. I'm not saying don't put guidelines and rules and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I'm not saying don't put Covenant Eyes. Covenant Eyes is very important, or whatever brand. This isn't a Covenant Eyes plug, but any kind of.
And they have that for the internet, not just for on computers, but on your phone.
Your phone, everything.
Okay.
And I'm, there's people doing it right now, and that's. It notifies. So if a young man looks at something on his phone, it notifies his accountability,
or accountability
whoever's
person.
accountability,
Okay.
and then they can have a meeting kind of thing, because that's where the biggest deal of getting out of it is accountability. Most young men that get addicted to pornography get out of it because of accountability. That's how you get out of it,
because they can sneak it and no one knows, and it's
So, but really, what it is the deal to me is not putting all these crazy boundaries and locking up the devices, because they'll figure out a way around it. Okay, so they'll use their Xbox or PlayStation to watch pornography if you have a blocker on their phone. They'll use a school computer. They'll use a friend's phone. They'll go buy a burner phone for $12 on eBay, and so. The goal, and I'm not saying don't put blockers, because I believe you should. Be as vigilant as you can be.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying at all. You've got to be as vigilant as you can be. But the goal is not vigilance. The goal is accountability. Is if you're talking once a week, this is me as a youth pastor, is once I know a young man is addicted to pornography or a young woman is addicted to pornography, I'm not talking to the young girls, I'll send them to my wife. But if a young man is addicted to pornography, we're going to meet once a week, or I'm going to have him meet with someone to help him once a week. And that is how we get out of it. But it's not the world of just saying, oh, just put a Covenant Eyes on your phone and we're solved.
Right.
That doesn't work anymore. So you've got to figure out new ways around it.
Well, and going back to what you said previously about Gen Z and purpose mattering to them, it seems like perhaps one of the ways to help people fight against it would be having them see it maybe in a perspective of how it's affecting their life, how it's impacting. And I'm not an expert on this at all, but having a teenage daughter, I have done some research on pornography, and it's just scary because it talks about based on the frequency that a young person exposes themselves to it, that it, and especially if it's happening during that preteen and teen years, it is actually rewiring the brain. It's having a biological effect on the brain development, which is going to impact. I was studying more pornography with males, but affecting their ability to have a healthy marriage, a healthy sexual life for the rest of their life. Yeah. They're creating a problem. So does that realization, if Gen Z is motivated by purpose, instead of external, so maybe they don't want external rewards, they don't want external bounds, somehow, and this would go even for standards in church, I assume, there has to be an internalization of the purpose for them to then be motivated.
No, that's that's
the ideal to strive toward.
Yes, okay. there's a motivation, not a boundaries. Is the boundary, you got to put the boundaries. I'm not, once again, I can't reiterate that, put the boundaries up. But you've got to motivate why this is important, why we've got to fix this, why we've got to break this demonic stronghold, why we've got to get through this, why we can't be addicted to this, why it's important that you break this now rather than just 5 years from now.
Right.
So there's got to be all right, now we move on. And it's that whole with Gen Z, it's the motivation thing. It's, all right, this is why it's important that we break this.
So does the Rock Church or other apostolic churches, do they set guidelines that they recommend for families in terms of like social media use? For example, I've heard, or some would make recommendations like, don't even give a smartphone till 16. If your child needs a phone because they have to be able to communicate with their parents, they're going to be at an event and need to say, come pick me up, get them a flip phone. But don't give them something that has social media on it until high school.
So I'm aware of instances of kids under 10, and this is not a one-off, and this is not someone on the internet. This is the reality of the world we live in, is multiple parents their children have been exposed to pornography or mature themes through YouTube Kids.
Under 10.
Under 10. So
I don't even know what YouTube Kids is.
This is part of the deal. Is it's supposed to be the safe YouTube.
Right. Okay.
And
children's entertainment.
Yes.
And there's still pornographic things on that?
Yes. So, yes. 100%.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. 100%. So you just have to be, as a parent, and this is getting into, even now, I'm a parent. This is not a Gen Z specific.
Right. It starts young.
My kids are 2 and 4 months.
Every generation
is. Yeah. My wife and I have to be very, very vigilant of any kind of, even educational. Like if my kid's sitting down to watch the ABCs of trying to teach her ABCs and to count to 10, you don't just let your kid roam free. You have to be very specific with.
And because even sometimes I think the media, the social media content is not just graphic things, like we've been talking about violence or pornography, sexual graphic sexually, but sometimes it is teaching indirectly values such as what's normative for family structure. Yeah. Those kinds of things, more progressive values are being pushed through those mediums.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
So, I mean, even if it's not graphic, very negative, there's still a concern of the values that are being taught through that are undermining traditional families.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was last week, the whole Coco Melon with 2 dads and the boys in a dress transgender thing. I mean, that show's aimed at 3-year-olds.
Yeah, dancing in a tutu.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So that's aimed at 3-year-olds. Yeah. So there's a element of programming.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So since you have 2 daughters who are under the age of 5, both in Gen Alpha, what guidelines do you think you and your wife will be setting up for them?
So it's important that the guidelines that we put, it's important to me that I don't handicap them for their future. But also I want to put enough guidelines that I don't destroy them for their future. Right.
So there's that balance.
Yeah. So I want them to properly be able to navigate technology and have comfort with technology. And some of my shortcomings are because I didn't play video games growing up. I stopped playing video games at 12 because I didn't like them. Well, honestly, at 31 years old, a little bit wishes I would have progressed my computer skills and stuff so I could have some strength in that area.
But maybe not in video games.
Maybe
There's
not
other
video
ways.
games. Yes, but like I was completely detached from the whole computer world. Yeah. So I don't want my daughters to have those shortcomings, but at the same time, we have to have parameters in place that protect them. So we do a lot of. I'll tell you, I'm very pro technology. My daughter's not Yale so much because she's 4 months, but Echo because she's 2.5 is. I use technology for ABCs and counting and all that. She has her little games that teach her motor skills and logic skills and all that and brain stuff. But even when she's doing that, we have to be very aware because she can be. She's learned. She's 2.5. She's learned is if she's on my iPad and a text comes through, she can swipe it. She can swipe, she presses the wrong button, she gets sent to a video, she's on YouTube, she links to another video, and she goes down the rabbit hole, and she's now being fed information. So for me, I'm not afraid of technology, but I just want to be aware. So she's not on technology if we're not in the room. She's not using the iPad just aimlessly with no purpose. It's not just her just by herself in her bedroom with the iPad. It's in the living room, it's structured. We make sure someone's there to keep some checks and balances and keep her protected.
And then are you limiting the amount of screen time too?
Yes. We honestly, as any
because so many
millennial
parents
yes.
use it as a babysitter.
Yes. No, we definitely, first, every parent can do better. But we do limit her screen time. It's not just from the time you get up till the time you get to bed. I would say it is an issue because it is so easy.
Yeah.
Is if you're out to eat, you hand them the iPad. They don't have to learn manners because
while they're waiting for dinner.
They can have great manners just looking at their iPad. And I'm not saying there's not the time and the place for that because sometimes you do have to have a real discussion or whatever. But the problem is when that becomes the norm, you disintegrate and your daughters don't have to learn manners.
And as an example, when my daughter was young, we had trouble. I mean, until she's about 4 or 5, it's difficult to sit still. And you order, and you're waiting a good 30 to 40 minutes for the meal to come. So we would actually, my husband and I would take turns, and we'd order together, and then one of us, I don't know if this is good, but one of us would take her outside. Yeah. And let's walk around the parking lot or let's walk around the restaurant, get that energy out. So then by the time we text each other and say the meal's ready, and then she comes in and eats, and then we'd have to obviously behave at the table through the meal and to the end. Yeah. But it kind of helped because at that young age, she had so much energy. So to sit there hungry, waiting for 30 minutes or more in a restaurant was difficult. But now it is convenient. Just pull out the phone and entertain the child.
Yeah, and there is a balance because, I mean, she's 3.5, so there's elements of the demoniac of Gadara in her. She can just go wild and start throwing. 2.5, sorry, 2.5. So she can just go completely nuts. And sometimes you're just like, okay, whatever, I'll be a bad parent. Okay, so I'm not saying there's not a time or there's whatever, but it's all about balance and it's limiting the potential for harm.
Right. Right. So that's it for today, but we do have another part of my interview with Boston Young. So please be sure to join me at the next episode where we continue our discussion of Gen Z.